Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Pretty Smart. And this is one of those rare occasions where you see Keone put his face over here in this domain. So I like to tread lightly, but we're for a special episode of Pretty Smart. And the reason why it's special is because you have two brilliant swag hosts here, me and Mr. Holmes. But then we have a steady host of Pretty Smart, Lena here. And we have a Darvinique sighting. So that's always exciting in her busy life. Well, I said Darvinique sighting and she's gone. But we also have our wonderful guest, Jennifer Blue. Everybody welcome Jennifer Blue.
Thank you.
Right. So you're used to us being, we go back and forth on this show. Sometimes it's serious. Sometimes it's extremely funny. Today we have one of those serious topics, but trust me, we'll always get our entertainment value in here when we need. But we're going to talk about a lot of things surrounding around domestic violence. We're not going to go too heavy into the happenings, but we want to talk about more of avoiding those situations, briefly talk about during those situations. We're going to have different questions for Ms. Blue, and then we're going to really talk about surviving and how you go on with your life after that. After that happened. Okay, so first, Jennifer, go ahead and introduce yourself. We've already welcomed you. Give us a little bit of your background and why you feel it's important to talk about this topic today.
Okay, well, first and foremost, hi, everybody. Thank you for having me on this evening. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm a survivor. I was in a toxic, abusive relationship from the time I was 18 to about 32. And then from there, when God says he will, what the enemy means for bad, God will turn it around for good. That's exactly what he did for me. I went on this crazy, amazing healing journey. And then from there, I become an advocate and I share my story. And I don't really, I talk about the abuse if that's what people want to talk about, but I like talking about the healing. And I tell everybody that life after abuse is fabulous. Okay, so that's really what I feel like my purpose is here on this earth is to help women and men, get through what they've gone through to get to where they need to be. So
that's awesome, because we're definitely going to have some questions for you from the male side, and if you guys want to hear, because we're not going to heavily go into the abusive part. If you want to hear more on that part after this episode, go to my channel and look at Rise with Lisette, and in that episode we talk a lot more about what happened then. So I want to talk about though. Now, of course, looking back in hindsight, it's easier. What are some of those things that can alert people that, hey, it seems like it's really cool now, but here are these indicators that this could turn into an abusive relationship that they ignore?
You want me to start?
Yeah.
It's me. So for me, I always call them yellow flags and red flags. Mm-hmm. This is where a lot of us mess up at in relationships is we don't pay attention to the yellow flags. It's like a stoplight. When the light turns yellow, it's going to eventually turn red. So we need to slow down because it's going to turn red and then we need to stop. So in relationships, I really think that if we paid more attention to the yellow flags, like those little things that just kind of make you say, step back and be like, that doesn't feel right or that doesn't sound right. And I think if we paid more attention to the yellow flags, then we wouldn't even get to the red flags, because I have deal breakers and I have boundaries. And I learned that along my healing journey. And I think if women and men really set boundaries and deal breakers, that once somebody crossed that line of a boundary or deal breaker, they would just be like, this ain't going to work, and walk away from it before it turned really bad. So for me, one of my yellow flags is tone, how you talk to me. Like you can't talk to me any old kind of way. And that tone, once that tone reaches a certain octave, then we have a problem. So communication is really, really big for me. And that's also a trigger for me too. You know, from being in an abusive relationship, when you yell at me, that does trigger me. So that's one of my yellow flags is communication, the way you talk to me. And then like I have little things. I think Keone, we talked about it on Lisette's show. Just little things that like I pay attention to how they talk about their previous relationship. I pay attention because if it's always her fault, she was crazy, she was this, she was that. Like, was she really always? You either you have a poor judgment in relation and picking women, or there was something else going on there. So if they're always complaining about the past relationship, and then what was the other one? It was another one that how he talks to his, like if they have a children's mother. I don't want to say baby mama, but if they're if they have a children's mother, how he talks to her, you know, because how he talks to her is how pretty, but probably how he talked to her that whole relationship. So if he's disrespectful to the child's mother and they ain't even together anymore, 9 out of 10, he's gonna probably be disrespectful to you.
Well, you know that also goes back to he talks to his mother too.
Right.
To his mother, he said.
Yeah, because it's home training. It all starts at home.
It does.
It also starts from home.
I in a way, I kind of agree with that, but then I kind of don't, because my ex-husband loved his mother. I mean, whatever his mother wanted, she got. He was very respectful to his mother. You know, and usually they say that it's how a man treats his mom is how he's going to treat his wife. Maybe back in the old school, but I don't think that's really that accurate.
I think it's learned. It might be a little bit learned.
I kind of think it's a thing of not how he treats his mother. It's growing up how you see your dad treat your mother. One or two things happens. You either grow a fonder appreciation of women because you want to do the opposite, because you're looking at how your mother's treated, or you become like that. It's never really in the middle. You usually go one way
or the other. Yep.
I have a question that I'm going to let the ladies ask questions because I just didn't want to forget it. When you talked about your standards and barriers and if they cross it, but I know that can be hard because we're inundated, especially women growing up, and ladies, tell me if I'm wrong, inundated with forgive, 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 especially on your side. Forgive. You know, you're looking for this support system and things that happen. You got to make it work. And that's not really given to us on this side as much. My dad told me if she tripping, you need to let her go, while my sisters are being told, hold on. You know? Go ahead, Darbonique. You look like you want to say something in response to that.
Yeah, I want to agree with you on that. I've seen that more than the opposite, or more than the other way around, where women are told to forgive, be graceful, and then the men are just like, to have your liberty. But circling back around, when you get triggered or when you experience trauma from an abusive relationship, and you go through the healing process, and which I want to talk to Jennifer more about, when you go through that, and then when you're meeting someone new and they do something that triggers an old emotion, how do you handle that? Do you respond as if you were triggered, or do you ask questions like, well, what do you mean by that? Or, what are you trying to say? Because I'm not understanding, instead of, going into the fight or flight, area.
Ooh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
That's a very good question. So for me, I definitely handle it with like, well, let's talk about that comment.
Yeah.
Because I don't argue. I will not argue with you. That's one thing I won't do. I will remove myself from a situation before it turns into an argument. So if he says something, I don't just write him off and be like, oh, girl, he said this, I ain't putting up with that. No, I ask him, so what exactly did you mean by that? Can we talk about that? And I ask questions, because communication is so important to me.
It is.
So, I can't blame someone for triggering me when they didn't even know that was a trigger.
Right.
So you definitely got to show a little bit of grace there and explain to them, well, what did you mean by that? And then once they explain it, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I was dating a guy, and his child's mother called. and he was talking to her, and then he just hung up on her. And I was like, you couldn't say goodbye?
Right.
He was like, for what? We said what we had to say. And I was like, well, that just kind of made me think of, you know, in my previous relationship, he would yell and say what he had to say and then just be disrespectful and hang up when a goodbye wasn't that hard to say.
Right.
And so, you know, and I told him that, you know, you should probably be a little bit more nicer to your child's mother. It just makes everybody get along better. And so, you know, I definitely, because that triggered me. I'm like, dang, did he have to hang up on her? You know, and so we, you know, I definitely will communicate and ask, you know, was that necessary?
I think a lot of people on both sides, whether guy or girl, because I mean, everybody knows I'm on both sides. So you hear it where people, I don't understand why people are so ready to talk about their past relationships with the new person that they're talking to. I've never understood that. I've never once talked to the new person about my old relationship. And if I did, it's always, me and Darvinique have talked at length. My ex-wife, her ex-husband, you could not get me to say a bad word that she has told me about him, and she can't get you to say a bad word about mine, because it's like, what's the point of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just never understood the phenomenon with having to talk about your past relationship troubles with the new one. Now, in a conversation like Jennifer brought out, something happens, and
right.
Because my wife used to say that. Me and my wife, the one thing we agreed on is, let's always have a conversation, not an argument.
Yeah.
So I just don't know what that phenomenon is. I just want to say that because it just.
So I think for me, it comes up easier because of what I do. Because, you know, I write. Well, I didn't really say this at the beginning, but I wrote a stage play about what I've been through, titled "Easier Said Than Done." Turned it into a book. Now we're turning it into a movie. So for me, and I do speaking events. So for me, it comes up my past. You know, but I do tell women, like, if you're healed from it, you really don't need to bring it in. You know, there's no need to carry it into the next relationship.
The healing.
Right. If they're talking about it, and that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. Like I just literally, a girlfriend of mine told me she had this conversation with somebody. He talked about his ex-wife all the time, and they've been divorced for like 15 years, 20 years. And I told her, I said, well, he's talking about her. If he's bringing her up a lot, maybe he's not over her.
Right.
You know, and so I told her, you know, she might want to dig into that a little bit more. But, you know, that's a sign. That's a little yellow flag. Maybe he's not healed.
Is it just talking about, or is it the context of what they're talking about? Like, if they're just, you know, they're just bringing them up, or is it like the manner of which they speak of them?
I think it's the manner. If, oh, she did this. She used to do this. When we were married, she did this. Like, oh my God. Like, aren't you over
it? Right. Okay. Right. Now, definitely when comparing you to them, I would definitely be like, nah, that's a red flag for sure. Absolutely. Like comparing you to the other person, like that's too much.
Yeah, because there's no comparing me. I'm one of one.
Okay. I am the only one.
And I own that. Okay. I am one of one. There's no other Jennifer Blue. So
now, Miss Blue, you were talking about the some red flags, yellow flags. Wouldn't extreme jealousy be like a red flag of some sort?
Oh my God, that's a deal breaker. Mm-hmm. I'm running at that. I cannot date an insecure person, a person that's jealous, insecure. And I tell ladies and men too, especially the younger generation, because they're like, oh, he blows my phone up. He texts me all the time. He wants to know where I'm at all the time. He wants the passcodes to my phone. I'm like, that is crazy jealousy, insecurity. Controlling. That is a red flag, baby girl. That ain't love. Okay.
Very possessiveness. It is very possessive.
Yes. Yeah. Then they think that's cute nowadays, or you know, and even women are like, oh, he wants to be with me all the time. And it's like, we need to have some me time.
Right.
You know, you do you, I'm gonna do me, we come together. But when they're constantly like wanting to like be in your space and who are you talking to? Who was that? That's a big deal breaker for me. And that's a red flag.
What if you got a young man that's in your life that loves spending time with you? And
loves what? I'm sorry.
He loves spending time with you. Mm-hmm. He wants to be with you 24/7. But he's not abusive. He's not none of the red flags, yellow flags. How are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I want to answer that.
I do too, but I'm gonna wait.
I think we all want to answer that question.
Right. I want to answer that.
I mean, he just loves being in your presence. He wants to cater to you. He loves you. He's none of the red flags, none of the yellow flags. He's just wanting to be.
Do you have his number? Do you have his number? You have his Facebook?
I'm sorry.
That sounds like a man. That sounds like a mama's boy. No, but that's
no. There's a healthy love. There's a healthy. That can be healthy, I think, as long as you're with it. You know, I would love to be in a relationship where we rock together.
Well, that's different.
Would you still want that space? Would you
want my space?
Yeah, because the way
you would still want that space.
The way I go to work, so I'm gonna have my space there. I do my speaking event.
Right. Don't count. Work don't count.
Yeah. So Ms. Lena, what kind of space you talking? What kind of space you talking about?
It's something I like to do because we might have some similar like things we like to do. Okay. But then there's some things we just don't mesh on. And I like to, like my husband and I love arts and crafts. I love being, creative. My husband is tech. I don't get it. So that's what he likes to do. Yes, it's also his work, but he does it for fun. For me, it's crafting. So yes, me time would be crafting. It's doing things that I like to do. Work is not, I mean, I love my job, but it's just not, it's just not something that I consider me time. Like it needs to be something that brings me joy or something that brings him joy. And then we can do something together that brings us joy, but it doesn't need to be like all the time.
I think it's a healthy balance though with you and your husband though, right?
It is.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Mr. Holmes, I might have misunderstood what you were saying, but no, I want that relationship because of all the BS I've gone through. I want that relationship where he wants to spend time with me. I want to spend time with him. But we do, like you said, like, I go on my girl trips.
Yes,
he go hang out with the fellas. You know, but in between that, like we're with each other a lot. I would love that. And it's healthy.
I was taking what you were saying, Mr. Holmes, and I might have took it wrong. I was picturing a suffocating person because I've been around that type of thing.
Oh,
like,
I didn't take
you
it.
need to be around me like every 5 seconds. I'm in the room, you in the room. I'm in the living room, you in the living room. I mean,
I'm in the bathroom, you in the bathroom.
Yeah, there was a guy, I think O'Neill talked about it. You're sitting on the couch watching football, you're very happy, and she comes in, what are you doing? Then she moves your leg and sits on it, cuts off your circulation, grabs the remote, changes the channel. Let's watch this. And it's like, oh my God, can I have 2 seconds?
See, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind.
But you get your me time.
Baby, come on.
I like the way Arlena said it. I like I said, I took you were talking about those suffocating people. Like every 5 seconds, you need to be right here.
Is that what you meant? Like the suffocating people? Or were you just talking about like a healthy relationship where your man just wants to spend time with you?
Yeah, just a healthy.
Oh,
no red flags,
that's how I
no red flags, no yellow flags.
I didn't want to sound like I was contradicting myself.
Yeah.
What's up, darling?
I mean, y'all just, just y'all tight.
I was going to say, is it safe to say that when you're dating certain people, they bring out a different version of you?
What kind of version?
It could be the good. It could be good. It could be bad. It could be mellow. It could just be a different version of you.
Yeah,
right.
I definitely agree with that for sure.
Right.
Yes,
that's always good. That's always good.
I had the perfect ex-wife because that was the best version of me.
Wow.
I
love it when he talks about her because he always says something good. I'm like, yeah, say that.
She was. I mean,
your lady friend.
We did the thing that Arlena had. We split up the holidays. Family holidays we spent together. Thanksgiving, Christmas, all those. But it's like 4th of July, why we need to be together? You go do that with the girls, I'll go do this with the guys.
Who would you like?
You separate. I knew a couple that worked together, lived together, and they got sick of each other because they were always right here. It's like, let me miss you for 5 seconds, please. Let me miss you.
I swear. Go ahead, sweetie.
Well, I was just gonna say, me and my husband, we both work from home. We're always here. We homeschool and everything. So that's why me time is important. Like me and my sister, we just did a whole weekend. We all stayed here because we weren't spending any money, but I left. I went out and I was free to go and come as I please. But he missed me. And when I got back, he was like, "Hey, how was your day?" I had something to tell him.
So sweet.
That's so sweet when they miss you. I think the pandemic really, really let couples know if they like each other or not.
Yeah.
Not love each other, just that they like each other.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you talk about this all the time. I can love you, but that don't mean I like you.
Like you, right?
Now that's huge because you can love somebody and not like them.
Mm-hmm.
That's so deep. That's so deep. And not only do we see that in intimate relationships, we see that with family members too. Like, I love you, uncle, but you be stealing too much.
Stay over there.
Whatever the case may be. And if I'm going to be in a relationship with someone, I want to like you too. I mean, I think that's the stage that we hit first before we love them.
Exactly.
Sometimes some people skip over it. They go from lust to love and forget.
Okay. I was about to say,
everybody might define that different. The way I define it is,
that's good.
I like you when we're no longer together. Because being realistic, every relationship has a cap. Whether it's 5 years, 50 years, 25, 5 minutes, it has a cap. You just don't know what it is until you get there, right? Mm-hmm. If I like you, once it's gotten to that point where we need to separate, we will be good friends because I like you.
Right.
When you love somebody and you fall out of that love, it gets bad sometimes.
It gets ugly. Yeah.
It gets ugly. Because I think one thing that people do is, because we were taught that everything's supposed to be forever, is when they see the writing on, when my whole thing was, anytime the writing was on the wall, I had to have that uncomfortable conversation of separating. Because why do we need to wait till it gets toxic and we don't like each other? Because we were told we got to stay in this relationship.
Yeah.
That is such a good conversation. I think forever it feels like it could be wonderful, but realistically, it just seems like for some, I can't say that for everybody, but for some it happens, for some it doesn't. And I think if we're okay with it either going both ways, I think it'll stop a lot of the drama. It'll stop a lot of the drama if we go into it thinking we want it to be forever, but if it doesn't, we'd be okay if we can just go our separate ways.
Yes.
But circling back around to Jennifer, when you started the healing process, I just have a couple questions. Did you start with therapy? What was that process like for you? Did you have a community, church members? Like, once you got out of it, how did you heal?
That's such a great question. So when I left healing, I didn't even think about healing. Literally, like I didn't even know that I needed to heal. I just thought I could just move on with my life. Mm-hmm. I was just like, oh, I'm free. I'm out of this relationship. I'm just gonna move on, because he was living his best life. So I'm like, I tried to date. That was just an epic fail. That was a nightmare. That was the last thing I needed to do, was try to even start dating. It wasn't until I just got tired of being sick and tired.
Sick and tired of what? Can I ask?
Of not being happy. Like something was just missing. Mm-hmm. And I had a great relationship with God. And I just remembered like telling God, like, Lord, what do I need to do to be happy? Like, he's happy. Why can't I be happy? And God told me plain as day. He said, baby, you got to heal.
Wow.
And I was like, heal. And then it hit me. I was like, wow, I never put that title of domestic violence victim on me. I never thought I was a victim. Even with black eyes looking back at me in mirrors, bruises on me, just all the mess I went through, I never thought I was a victim. And so that morning when I had the conversation with God, I was like, God, I was a victim of domestic violence. I do need to heal. And God said, no, baby, you're a survivor.
Come on. Ooh, it's good.
He said, but you gotta heal. Mm-hmm. And he took me on this amazing healing journey. And it started with first admitting that it happened. Mm-hmm. And me saying that I was a victim and now a survivor. Like, I acknowledged what I'd gone through. Because Pastor Paula White wrote this amazing book called You Can't Conquer What You Don't Want to Confront. Mm. Back in I think it was like 2009, she wrote this book. Changed my life. And so I said, okay, I got it. I admitted it. I'm going to just give you like the high points of the healing journey. But I had to admit what I had gone through. And then, this was a really, really hard step. I had to forgive. And I not only had to forgive him, but I had to forgive myself.
Right.
Not that I did anything wrong, but I had to forgive myself that I stayed for so long. I had to forgive myself that I subjected my children to this. That was a lot, and then forgiving a man that has mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, verbally just try to annihilate you, and then had 2 children outside of your relationship, one before you got married, one after you got married. He gave me a whole lot I had to forgive for. Okay, so I went through all that, did the forgiveness thing, and then I started therapy late. I wish I would have started therapy earlier, but therapy definitely was key to my healing journey. And then I took time to love me and get to know me.
Yes.
That was like, girl, one of the best parts of the healing journey is I got to know me again. I realized that, I love being blonde. I realized the longer my eyelashes are, the better I like them. I like to get in glam. I like to laugh. I forgot I like to laugh.
Wow.
So that healing journey, I tell women and men, when you get out of a toxic relationship, the last thing you need to do is date. You need to get to know you. You need to go on this healing journey. So when you meet that person for you, you're starting fresh. You're not carrying in all this baggage.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I want to, so when you said you started to love you love your blonde hair, you love getting glammed up, in order for you to get to that space, I'm sure that maybe there was some kind of boundary in place for you to be able to experience that side of yourself again.
Yes.
What did you have to stop? What did you have to cut off? Was it you having company and just enjoying your own company? What was that process for you?
For me, I had to stop self-sabotaging myself. I was literally like such a negative person. I had to change the narrative. And so I stopped hanging out with certain people. I stopped going to certain places. I started going to church so much. Like whenever the church doors was open, for me, that's what my relationship with God is what got me through. And I always tell people, I don't, whoever your higher power is, that's who you need to grab onto when you're healing. For me, it's God, and it's nothing but God that brought me through it. And so that I love how you said that. What did you have to let go in order to let the new you in? And I really I had to let go of some people.
Yeah. I think yes, that too. Yes. Yes, letting go of people and allowing people, I would say, not for you, I'm just thinking out loud, allowing so many people to have access to you.
Exactly.
The advice that people give me let me know if they should stay in that circle or not, based on their response to the things I'm telling them. I always say, you've heard me say this before, friends are supposed to enhance your joy and divide pain, right? And so I always say a good barometer is if you tell somebody, hey, I think I'm getting a promotion at work. Oh, I'm thinking I'm getting one too. You can't even live my happiness for 2 seconds.
Right.
You won't even know about mine for 2 weeks.
And then when you bring somebody your pain, if they give you that generic answer of like, oh, you know what, you're strong, everything's going to be all right, and they quickly change the subject to something else, they're not interested in helping you as a friend or helping you do that. So you got to identify that as well. People, faith, that's going to be number one for a lot of people. Number one for me is always going to be the support system, and I say friends a lot. Because you can't pick your family. You're born into that family. Who's related to you, you have no decision over that.
Right.
Surround yourself in your friend circle. You buy the groceries at the store. You're in total control of that, of what you put around you. And I think the power of friendship gets lost on a lot of people because a lot of people throw that label around. Oh, that's my friend. That's my friend.
Right.
Everybody's not your friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I have an off the wall question. It's kind of like on topic, but
you have an off the wall question? Never.
No, never. Okay, for real. So it's weird to ask this question, but in a situation, I feel like it's necessary. The person that commits the domestic violence, do you believe that they can be cured or there is healing for them? And how can you help them get to that point if you so desire?
You can't.
Yeah, that's the word. If they so desire.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I don't. And I'm sorry, Mr. Holmes. Go ahead. I'll let you.
No, I'm just reiterating. If they so desire, it's if they are really truthfully ready to change and ask for forgiveness and repent and change from their wicked ways. You know, you can. It's all about action. You can talk all day long, but it's your actions that means a lot. So it's daily that you change. Daily.
It's a word right there. That's good.
Not, you know, it's like somebody who gets in trouble with alcohol doesn't make them alcoholic. And this is not me defending anybody. I'm talking about real life experience. I had a cousin of mine, never put his hands on a woman, didn't have a violent bone in his body. And again, this is not an excuse for him. Got fired, was going through a lot of stuff, had 3 kids. He felt he was getting nagged all over the place. One day he came home, he got nagged on to the point where he broke and he hit her. And she said when he hit her and she looked at him, he just immediately broke down and started crying because even he knew, like, what the hell did I just do? And they immediately went and got counseling. Now, they've been together for 15 years since then. But it was like, in that instance, he knew, like, oh, something's wrong. I just did something I would never do. And again, I'm not excusing him. And then when he got counseling, and 15 years later, there's been no incident. So as y'all were saying, you've got to want, either that's not you and you got to want it to not be you. What to happen. I think that goes with anything, right? Whether
I was getting that's across the board. You got to not want that version of you, because we all can feel the water boiling inside of us.
Exactly.
Right. We all can hear the thoughts, and we all can see the visions before the action actually takes place. Definitely. So in that moment, that's where the willpower within us, like, we have to stand up inside of ourselves and say, I'm not going to respond to what I'm feeling or what I'm seeing as it relates to harming somebody, being offensive to somebody. That's where that flesh, that spirit and the flesh start to war. And that's where the decision has to be made, because it's cutting edge. It's a fine line. And one might roar louder than the other.
Come on.
And depending on where you're at in your walk and your faith and who you are and who you choosing not to be, you can fold under certain pressures.
Yeah.
So, I get told I was wrong for that.
No,
you know how I talk about I used to always say, if you make me so angry, like if anybody I'm dating makes me angry enough for me to ball my fist, I'm like, oh no, we can't.
Yeah, we can't be. Yeah, that's taking me out of my character.
The person I was talking to, I'm not even gonna get to what the situation was, but they did something. I got so angry, both my fists was balled up, and I was just angry. And I said, "Oh no, you're gonna take me there," and I've never. So we don't need. No, this doesn't need to happen.
Wow, and that's that person pulling out a certain version of you.
Yeah.
Well, that's Jennifer also saying, I did ignore the yellow flags, Jennifer. I did ignore them.
We all have.
And that red flag came out. And I said, okay, red flag, you got me.
But at least you paid attention to that
red flag, right?
I definitely would love to comment on what she just said about, do you forgive? Do you help them? I always believe that, you know what, anybody can change if they if they so desire. Absolutely. Right. But for me, and what I always let people know, domestic violence, if they're beating on you more, like you said, that incident was one time, that one time they nipped it in the bud. They were like, okay, this ain't me. We need to fix this. Let's go get counseling. God bless them. That was amazing. But a lot of people don't have that, that's not their situation. So I always let women know, and I always say women because that's my audience. The majority of my 99% of my audience, 98% is like women. But I always tell women he can heal, but he don't have to heal with you in the house. He don't have to heal while you guys are together. Let him go heal someplace else so you can stay safe. And if he truly, because I hear so many women say, "Oh, girl, he changed." Well, what did he do to change? Is he going to therapy? Is he going to anger management? You know, what has he done to change? He didn't just change overnight. Right. And a lot of these narcissistic people that are abusing other people, they honestly don't think there's nothing wrong with them, so they don't need to go get help because
you need to change.
Yeah, they always want to put the blame on you. They always put the blame on the victim.
Yeah. I made him hit me. Well, I don't think if they hadn't gone to counseling, that was a potential for that to be, because once you hit somebody, everybody's that's an abuser, they hit somebody the first time, right? And it's so where did they go after that? And then there's no incentive there for them to stop if the other party isn't, But what I wanted to ask you was, you said something and fixing. And I want to ask you about this because it's a stereotypical thing that's said, but some stereotypes are based on observations. And I've observed this a lot. Denzel Washington was asked, because Denzel's played a lot of suave parts, and he was the heartthrob of every woman in his prime, right? What's the character that women ask you about the most? And he said Lorenzo. And they're like, when you finally played a bad guy on Training Day, he's like, yeah. He goes, why? He said, I asked him that too. And you know what every woman tells me? Because I can fix him. That's a problem. And I hear that a lot from women that I talk to. I'm like, when they, like friends of mine that have these trouble, I'm like, why are you, I can fix him. It's all right. I'm like, no, you can't.
I ain't fixing nobody.
Right. Right. I'm not fixing anybody. I'm too grown.
I'll pray for you, but I'm not going to fix you because I got to work on myself. Sorry.
I call that the Build-A-Bear mentality. We can get out of that. We are not Bob the Builder. We cannot fix that man, and a man can't fix a woman, honestly.
Right. And you know how I see, who is that? Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
You know how I see it? I see like people who are dealing with an abuser, whether it's male or female, because it happens on both sides. It's like a heroin addict.
Come on.
Going into the recovery room.
Yep.
They have whiplashes. They have things that just they're blowing up for no reason. They're going through all of these withdrawals in the process of transitioning into something better. And so I think, from my own personal opinion, if you're dealing with an abuser, like Mr. Holmes, is it Mr. Holmes? Yes, Mr. Holmes, to leave the situation. Jennifer said it too, get out of the way, and give them that space to go through that, because a lot of times they have under the current unresolved issues. And a lot of times it's sad to say, but their abuse is a secondary emotion to what's really happening underneath that water. Something else is bothering them. Something else triggered them, an old seed, an old memory. And because they've never processed through how they feel when they're upset, anger management, you get the end of the stick of their outlet.
I see that in abusers and parents sometimes. I always talk about it. It's the same thing. You don't like your job, you're miserable, you're not where you're at in life. And when you come home, your response to casserole being made again is to punch her in the eye. There's something else going on besides her making casserole. And I told my mother this one day. I said, most of the beat you gave me wasn't even about what I did. Because I could hear it in your voice when you were hitting me and what you were talking about. You was mad about some other stuff, but because I left a fork in the sink, your reaction is to whoop me from the kitchen to the bedroom because I left dishes in the sink. I'm like, that didn't have nothing to do. What you just did had nothing to do with that fork.
It's good, John.
I found out as an adult why the whoopings were as extensive because of certain things that were going on in her life. So that's why I can get what you say. It's sometimes it's a secondary thing.
Yeah.
I love how you put that.
Yeah. So, but before we wrap up, let's get back. We're going to end on a positive note. Jennifer, please talk about the book that you wrote again, and we'll have your social media handles and your website and all those things in the description. I love where you're at right now because even before you come on, it's just a giant smile. Smile, you know.
Thank you. I'm happy. You know, I can honestly say I'm happy. And another part of my healing journey was writing therapy. Like I didn't know it was called writing therapy at the time, but a friend of mine, he told me, you know, to journal. And so like I started journaling. I don't know, I didn't think I came out with like 7 journals in like 3 years. I was just writing every day. You said what?
That's another book right there. That's a movie right there. Those journals.
Okay. I know, right? Oh, God, yes, that's coming too. But I remember one day God told me to like just write a book, and so I started writing this book. And then He said, when you get to your marriage, turn it into a stage play. And I was like, God, you got jokes, because I don't know nothing about writing a play. But okay, you got to write it through me. Long story short, He did. It's titled Easier Said Than Done. During the pandemic, I turned it into a book. Easier said than done. Thank you. You can contact me for the book, or you can go on Amazon Kindle. A shameless plug, but so the book, and then I wrote another book called "Girl, We Need to Talk: Surviving a Toxic Relationship." Hopefully soon. I'm not gonna say no names, but somebody might help me come out with my own show called "Girl, We Need to Talk." So no pressure, but that should be coming soon too. But with the movie, I mean, now I'm working with 2 amazing people, Tiffany Lorard and Jacoby Howard. I'm making it into a movie, and I'm so excited about that. It's just like, you know, and I want women to know that like you're not the only one going through this. Because so many women still believe that they're the only ones going through this, you know, and I want them to watch something that lets them know that no, you're not the only one going through this. And girl, I'm here for you. These characters are here for you, and I wanted to inspire them to know that, you know, there's life after. And the story is about a girl named Navy, and you know, and she takes us through the abusive marriage, but she also takes us through her healing, and then how she like comes out on top at the end. So you know, and I add a lot of comedy. I add humor. I had one of the biggest comments I get about my stage play is they're like, you know, we never thought we'd laugh so much at a play about domestic violence. And I don't make joke like, you know, of the violence, but of the people around me. They were. I have some girlfriends that are absolute fools. Okay, and they're funny as heck, but they will literally like give it to me real. Like, you know, they give me that advice that a lot of women don't want to take, but I took it, and it's because of my girlfriends, honestly, that I got out. You know, I always say my daughter saved my life, which she did, and that's a whole nother story. But if it wasn't for my homegirls and their support, I don't think I would really be right where I'm at right now. So I love my girls. They're the bomb.
Awesome.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you. So yeah, the book is on the movie should be coming soon, and you can get the book, and then the play. I want to bring the play back out in North Carolina this fall. So.
Well, let me know. You know, let me know when you're casting.
I will, because I know you can act.
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't mind being a part of that, but I don't want to be the guy doing the domestic violence.
What'd you say, Mr. Holmes?
What did you say?
So I want to be a part of that, but I do not want to be the guy that's doing the domestic violence.
Oh, see, look,
that's somebody else.
No. But see, Mr. Holmes, you shouldn't think like that, because I used to think that like too. I don't have a hit a woman bone in my body.
Right.
But that's how you know you're perfecting your craft, when you can play something totally opposite. You know, you can play a role so good. Lawrence Fishburne, you know how many people hated him from after Love got to do it because he played that part so well. I couldn't stand him.
You know, oh, I'm sorry. Because I had a cast in Detroit, and then when I moved to North Carolina, I got a cast down there. But my cast in Detroit, I remember the guy that played the abuser. The first show we ever did. Now he was a minister in real life. He was a minister, but he played the abuser. And after the show, my first show, we had like 372 people there. I'll never forget that show. It was amazing. Thank you. And, you know, people were coming up afterwards. We were all taking pictures. And this lady walked up to him and he said, "Hi, how are you doing?" She was like, "Don't talk to me. I don't like you." and it hurt his feelings. He was like, Blue, like this lady said she didn't like me. And I said, baby, you just rocked that character so tough that she really thought you were that person. So take that as a compliment. And he was like, yeah, but I don't like people to say they don't like me.
It's like I used to watch my mom and her friends talk about how they don't like certain people in soap operas that they used to watch.
You know you're a good actor when you do that. So Mr. Holmes, you might want to, step out of your character a little bit and try it. When the acting bug bit me, I'm addicted now. I love being on stage.
See, you could probably do that better than me, Mr. Holmes, because I'm the type of person, I get tough. I can turn around, Darby, and say, "I'll smack you." She'd be like, "Boy, if you don't sit down." And I'm like, okay.
You gotta stay in character.
He said stay in character. Before we go, I just want to say thank you for doing shows like this, because a lot of people will do these domestic violence shows and all they talk about is the abuse. Yeah. And there's so many people out here that are like, I'm going through the abuse right now. I want to know how to get out of the abuse. Yes. I want to know how to heal. So I really could, kudos to all of you for doing a show like this. Thank you.
We thank you for having you thank you for having us.
You already got my show. You practicing.
You already got me under pressure, Chava. They gonna say no names. Peony. Okay. We will communicate. We'll get that done, and then we can get some of these knuckleheads on there.
Yeah, well, not knuckleheads, but I would love to have all of it the same cast on here.
No. If they work for me, they knuckleheads.
We be giving we run John up the hill. We do.
Oh,
okay.
That's a whole other episode.
We're not gonna talk about it.
Everybody, please look at the description, get the contacts for Jennifer Blue, and you'll see a lot more of her on her own channel in the future, as well as Coyote Productions. Thank you for everybody for staying up with us tonight. Those of you who are watching this later, we'll see you on the next one. Good night.
Good night. God bless.
Good night.
Good night.